Pisces, something set into motion the moment you pressed play. I want you to feel that before we go anywhere else together, because it changes how you'll hear everything that follows. This isn't a reading you're passively receiving. It's a door you just opened, and the act of opening it is itself the first movement in a sequence that has already begun to unfold. You didn't stumble here by accident. You arrived at the exact moment. A certain kind of readiness in you met a certain kind of readiness in the field around you, and where those two readinesses touch, things start to move. Let me describe what I sense is already in motion, because the motion is the whole story here. There's a current that has been building quietly, gathering itself the way water gathers behind the smallest obstruction until it has enough weight to push through. That current has a direction, and the direction is you. Something has been traveling towards you for longer than these 2 short days, but these 2 days are when it crosses the final stretch of distance, when the far off becomes the near, when what was theoretical becomes something you can almost feel the warmth of. I want to be precise about the shape of this approach, because vague promises help no one, and you deserve better than that. What's coming towards you isn't a dramatic thunderclap. It's more like a tide that has already turned. If you've ever stood on a shore and watched the water begin its slow reversal, you know that the turning happens quietly, almost imperceptibly, and then suddenly the sand you were standing on is wet. That's the register of what's arriving in your connection to another person. Quiet at first, undeniable soon after. Here's the first thing that had to happen before any of this could reach you, and it's already done. A kind of clearing took place. Some obstruction that stood between you and the person your heart has been oriented toward has been loosening its grip, and in these 2 days, it finishes letting go entirely. I don't mean a person removed from the picture. I mean a barrier of hesitation, a knot of confusion, a fog that made it hard for 2 people to find each other cleanly. That fog has been thinning. What was blurred is coming into focus, and focus is what allows 2 people to finally see each other properly. Notice how differently everything reads once the fog lifts. The same signals that confused you before start to make sense. The things that felt contradictory reveal their pattern. You've been trying to interpret a situation through a haze, and interpretation through haze always produces doubt, no matter how strong the underlying truth is. But the haze isn't a permanent feature of your story. It was a temporary condition, and its lifting is part of what these 2 days are for. On the other side of it, clarity waits like a room that was always there, just behind a door you couldn't quite find the handle of. The stillness you may have been living inside lately was never emptiness. And this is the message that Sarah Angel Tarot most wants to place in your hands right now. A quiet stretch in matters of the heart is so easily mistaken for absence, for a sign that nothing is happening, that you've been forgotten or overlooked. But quiet is often where the most important assembly takes place. Behind a still surface, pieces have been moving into position. The calm you experienced was the calm of preparation, not the calm of a story that had ended. Let me tell you about the movement happening on the other side, in the heart and mind of the person connected to you, because you are not the only one in motion here. There's someone whose thoughts have been turning toward you with increasing frequency, and in these 2 days, that turning reaches a kind of critical point. It stops being an occasional drift of the mind and becomes a steady orientation. You've been on their mind more than you'd guess, appearing in the small, unguarded moments when the day goes quiet and the heart says what it actually wants without asking permission first. Watch how their hesitation has been dissolving, because this matters to the timing. Whatever held this person at a careful distance has been eroding, grain by grain, and it's nearly worn through. There's a threshold in every hesitant heart where the fear of acting finally becomes smaller than the fear of missing the chance entirely, and this person is crossing that threshold now. It's not that they suddenly became brave, it's that the balance tipped. The scale that held them back has slowly, quietly shifted its weight, and it's about to settle decisively on the side of reaching toward you. I want to name the specific quality of what's approaching, because not all arrivals are the same. This one carries recognition. Whatever comes toward you in these 2 days will feel less like meeting something new and more like remembering something you already knew. That's the signature of a soul deep connection. It doesn't announce itself as a stranger. It arrives wearing the face of the familiar. And part of you relaxes instantly because part of you was already expecting it. When it comes, notice that flash of recognition. It's your own knowing confirming that this is real. There's a synchronization taking place that I find quietly astonishing. Two people moving through separate lives, separate schedules, separate weather are being brought into rhythm with each other. It's as though two clocks that were slightly out of time are being nudged toward the same beat. And when two hearts finally tick together, opportunities appear that simply couldn't exist while they were out of sync. A message that lands at exactly the right moment. An impulse to reach out that happens to coincide with an openness to receive. These 2 days are when the rhythms lock into place. Let me draw your attention to a softening that's happening in you, because you are being prepared too, whether or not you've noticed. Some guardedness you've carried, some protective tightness around your own heart has been easing. Life has a way of hardening us in the places where we've been hurt, and that hardening serves us for a time, but it also keeps out the very warmth we long for. What I sense is that your own walls have been lowering quietly, on their own, without you having to force it. You're becoming more able to receive. And becoming able to receive is the precondition for anything good actually reaching you. Here's a truth about how these things arrive that I want you to hold on to. The moment often comes disguised as something ordinary. You may be expecting the significant thing to announce itself with fanfare, but soul connections tend to slip in through the side door of an unremarkable moment, a casual exchange that suddenly deepens. A small interaction that unexpectedly carries weight. So in these 2 days, pay attention to the ordinary, because the extraordinary has a habit of hiding inside it. Don't let the plainness of the packaging fool you about the value of what's inside. I sense a particular warmth gathering around a form of communication reaching you. Something is going to be said or written or somehow conveyed to you that carries more feeling than its surface suggests. The words themselves may be simple, but underneath them will be a current of genuine care, and if you listen with your heart rather than only your ears, you'll feel it. This person has a way of hiding tenderness inside casual phrasing, of saying something small when they mean something enormous. Learn to hear the enormous thing underneath. It's there. Let me speak to the fear that might be rising even as you listen, the fear that hoping will only set you up to be let down again. I understand that fear intimately, and I want to honor it rather than dismiss it. You've protected yourself by expecting less, and that strategy kept you safe through hard stretches. But safety and aliveness aren't the same thing, and there comes a point where the walls that protected you begin to imprison you instead. These 2 days are an invitation to loosen your grip on the expectation of disappointment, just enough to let something better through. You don't have to fling the door wide, you only have to leave it unlocked. There's a convergence happening that goes beyond just the two of you, and I want to widen the frame for a moment. Circumstances that seemed unrelated to your love life have been quietly rearranging themselves in your favor. The timing of things you couldn't control, the way events have been sequencing, the doors that opened and closed, much of it has been clearing a path you couldn't see the purpose of at the time. What felt like random inconvenience was often the universe reshuffling the deck to deal you a better hand. In these 2 days, you may look back and suddenly understand why certain things had to happen the way they did. I'm noticing a shift in how this person perceives you specifically, and it's worth describing. Something has caused them to see you in a new light lately, to reconsider you, to feel a fresh appreciation that maybe wasn't fully there before or had grown dim. People's perceptions of each other aren't fixed. They breathe, they evolve, they can suddenly deepen. And this person's perception of you has been deepening. You've become more significant in their inner world, more vivid, harder to look away from. Whatever caused this reappraisal, its effect is that you now occupy a larger place in their attention than you did. Let me talk about the courage that's being summoned, because someone is gathering theirs. There's a difference between feeling something and acting on it. and the distance between those two is made of nerve. This person has had the feeling for a while. What they've been assembling is the nerve. And in these 2 days, the nerve finally reaches sufficient quantity to move them into action. You might picture it as someone standing at the edge of cold water, having decided to swim, but not yet having taken the plunge, breathing themselves up to the moment of commitment. That breathing up is nearly complete. The plunge is close. I sense a quiet vow taking shape inside the person moving toward you, a private promise they're making to themselves about how they intend to treat you when the moment finally comes. It's the kind of resolution someone forms only when they've decided a person matters enough to be genuinely careful with. They aren't merely feeling something toward you, they're deciding something. Committing inwardly to showing up more honestly, more attentively, more devotedly than they may have managed with anyone before. That inner vow is invisible from the outside, but it will shape everything about the way they approach you, lending their steps an intention and a steadiness that mere feeling left to itself never produces. I want to offer you something about your own worth here, because the approaching connection is, in part, a mirror. What comes toward you reflects what you've grown into. The version of you that exists now, softened by what you've survived, wiser for what you've learned, more yourself than you used to be, is a version worth being drawn to. You may not always see it, but you've become more magnetic precisely through the process of becoming more real. The things you went through didn't diminish you. They refined you into someone whose presence carries a quiet gravity, and gravity pulls things toward it. Here's a subtle sign to watch for, one that people often miss. When something significant is about to arrive in the realm of the heart, there's frequently a small increase in signs and coincidences, moments where the same idea keeps appearing, where a name or a memory or an image keeps surfacing without obvious cause. If you notice in these 2 days that your thoughts keep returning to a particular person, or that reminders of them seem to multiply around you, don't dismiss it as your imagination. That multiplication is often the outer world beginning to reflect an inner alignment. It's the universe's way of tapping you on the shoulder. Pay attention to your dreams during these 2 days, because the sleeping mind so often receives news before the waking one is ready to hold it. If this person has been surfacing in your rest, appearing in scenes that leave a warm residue when you open your eyes, that is not random noise. The dreaming mind is a quieter room, and quieter rooms are where the faintest signals can finally be heard clearly. What Sarah Angel Tarot has watched unfold time and again is that the heart's deepest knowings tend to slip in first through the side door of sleep, long before they're ever spoken in daylight. So if a certain presence keeps visiting your nights, take it as a sign that something is stirring on a level far beneath the ordinary surface of your days. Let me address the possibility of a reconnection. Since for some of you, the person approaching isn't new at all. There are connections that were interrupted rather than ended, paused rather than concluded, and some of those are being resumed. If there's someone from your story who left an unfinished feeling behind, a sense of a conversation that was never properly completed, know that unfinished things have a way of finding their completion when the time is finally right. What was left hanging can be picked back up. In these 2 days, a thread you thought was cut may reveal that it was only set down, waiting for a steadier hand to lift it again. I sense that a certain heaviness you've been carrying is about to lighten. There's an emotional weight that comes from uncertainty, from not knowing where you stand, from the exhausting labor of wondering. That labor has a cost, and you've been paying it. But clarity is on its way, and clarity, even when it's simply the confirmation of what you hoped, brings relief. The wondering stops. The weight lifts. You'll be able to set down the heavy bag of not knowing that you've been hauling, and you may not realize how much it weighed until your shoulders finally rise without it. Let me speak to the way this connection will feel different from what came before, because you may be bracing for a repeat of old patterns. What approaches you carries a steadier energy than the ones that hurt you. There's a maturity to it, a groundedness, an absence of the chaotic push and pull that made past connections feel like a storm you had to survive. This one feels more like shelter than weather. And if you've come to associate love with anxiety, with the constant monitoring of whether you're about to be dropped, this will be a strange and welcome recalibration. The discovery that a bond can feel calm, that being wanted doesn't have to feel like danger. There's an honesty coming that I want to prepare you for, because honesty can catch you off guard when you're used to reading between the lines. This person is moving toward a directness they haven't shown before. The games, the ambiguity, the careful keeping of options open, that era is closing. What replaces it is a plainer kind of speaking, a willingness to say the actual thing rather than hint at it. And while directness can feel startling after a long stretch of ambiguity, it's a gift. It means you'll finally get to stop translating. You'll be told rather than left to guess, and being told is a form of respect. I want to point to a piece of self-trust that's returning to you. Somewhere along the way, you may have started doubting your own read on things, your own intuition about this connection. Perhaps you were told, directly or indirectly, that you were imagining it, that you wanted it too much to see clearly, but your intuition has been more accurate than you've let yourself believe. The feeling you couldn't shake, the sense that there was really something there, that sense was sound. In these 2 days, you'll likely receive confirmation that your instincts were right all along, and with that confirmation comes the restoration of trust in your own inner compass. You may notice too that you're being received differently by the world lately, and this isn't your imagination inventing comfort. When a person begins to move into alignment with love, their whole presence tends to brighten, and others feel that brightening before they can put a name to it. You might catch more warmth coming toward you from unexpected directions, more openness in casual interactions, more ease in the way people respond to you generally. This is the overflow of an inner shift. The connection approaching you is already subtly changing your frequency, and the world is answering the change. You're becoming more luminous, and luminous things have a way of drawing good things close. Something is also becoming visible to the people around you, and their noticing is a confirmation in its own right. Connections that are real tend to eventually surface, to become apparent to observant friends and family who catch the shift in your energy or the change in how a certain person speaks of you. You may find in these 2 days that someone close to you remarks on a lightness they've sensed in you, or that word of another's interest reaches you through an unexpected messenger. When the outer world starts reflecting your private hope back to you, it's a sign the hope has grown solid enough to cast a shadow others can see. Let me describe the atmosphere that surrounds a genuine soul connection when it clicks into place, because you should know what to feel for. There's an unmistakable ease to it, a sense that you don't have to perform, don't have to shrink or inflate yourself, don't have to manage the other person's impression of you. You just get to be, and being is enough. If in these 2 days, you find yourself in an interaction where you suddenly feel permission to simply exist without effort, pay close attention. That ease is one of the surest fingerprints of the real thing. It's the feeling of a lock finding its key. There's a generosity of spirit awakening in this person that I want you to know about. As they move towards you, they're moving with a genuine wish for your happiness, not merely a desire to have you. The distinction is everything. Some people want you the way they want a possession to hold, to keep, to have their needs met by. But what I sense here is a want that includes your flourishing, that would be glad to see you thrive, that takes pleasure in your joy for its own sake. That's love with an open hand rather than a closed fist. And an open hand is the only kind of hand you can safely place your own inside. I want to gently name a choice that will be yours to make, because none of this arrives to override your freedom. When the moment comes, you'll have a decision whether to meet it, whether to open, whether to let yourself step toward what's stepping toward you. The current is real and the approach is real, but you remain the author of your own response. And I raise this not to burden you, but to empower you. What happens isn't something that merely befalls you. It's something you participate in. Your yes matters. Your willingness is half of the meeting. The connection is inviting you, and an invitation is only complete when it's answered. Here's something tender about the person moving towards you. They've been rehearsing in their own private way how they might approach you. Turning phrases over, imagining scenarios, quietly preparing for a moment they hope will go well. There's a vulnerability in that rehearsal that deserves your gentleness. When someone finally reaches out after rehearsing it 100 times in their head, they're handing you something fragile. Receive it kindly, even if it comes out a little clumsy, a little imperfect. The imperfection is often proof of how much they cared about getting it right. Let me touch on a fear this person carries that might explain their slowness, because understanding it will soften your view of the weight. They've been afraid of your rejection. The very intensity of their feeling made the possibility of being turned away feel enormous, and so they delayed, protecting themselves from a wound they couldn't be sure was coming. That delay was never indifference. It was the caution of someone who cared too much to risk carelessly. And now, in these 2 days, their longing has finally grown larger than their fear, which is the precise condition under which cautious hearts move. There's a spaciousness opening in your own life that's making room for this. Perhaps something that occupied your attention has been resolving, freeing up an emotional bandwidth you didn't have before. It's hard to receive a new love while you're still fully entangled in an old story or consumed by a draining situation. And part of what's been happening is a quiet clearing of your own inner space. You've been making room, maybe without realizing it, setting down burdens and closing chapters. And that newly cleared space is exactly what allows something fresh to enter. Emptiness, in this sense, is not lack, it's readiness. There's a release I sense you're ready for. A quiet setting down of an old resentment that has been taking up more space in your heart than you've admitted. It's difficult for new warmth to move into a house still crowded with old grievances. And part of what these 2 days offer is the chance to loosen your grip on something you've been holding against what came before. You don't have to force forgiveness. It isn't a thing you can manufacture on command, and pretending otherwise only buries it deeper. But you can become willing, and willingness alone is enough to begin the loosening. As that old weight lifts, room opens where there wasn't room, and into that clearing, the new tenderness can flow far more freely than it ever could, while the space was occupied by an ache you'd stopped noticing you carried. I want to speak to the patience you've shown, because it hasn't gone unnoticed by the deeper workings of things. You waited when waiting was hard. You kept a small flame of hope alive through stretches that would have justified letting it go out. That perseverance mattered. It kept a channel open. Had you fully closed yourself off, hardened completely, given up entirely, the approaching connection would have found a locked door, but you didn't. You kept a crack of possibility ajar. And through that crack, everything I'm describing can now flow. Your hope was not naive. It was load-bearing. Let me describe the quality of attention you're about to receive, because it's rare and worth recognizing when it comes. This person has a capacity to truly see you, to notice the details, to remember the small things, to pay the kind of attention that makes another person feel real and valued. In a world where so much attention is distracted and half present, being genuinely seen is a form of nourishment we're all starving for, and that nourishment is coming your way. You're about to feel the particular warmth of being looked at closely by someone who finds the looking worthwhile. There's a lightness of touch to how this will unfold that I want to reassure you about. It won't demand that you have everything figured out immediately. It won't require you to make enormous commitments in a single moment. What approaches you is willing to move at a humane pace, to let things develop naturally, to give you the room to grow into it rather than forcing you to leap. So if part of your hesitation has been the fear of being rushed, you can set that fear down. The pace of this is gentle. It meets you where you are and lets you set much of the rhythm from there. I sense a healing quality woven through this connection, and I mean that in a specific way. The presence of this person seems to have a soothing effect on some of the old sore places in you. Not because they'll fix you, that's not anyone's job, but because their steady care creates conditions in which your own healing can accelerate. Some wounds close faster in the presence of safety, and this connection carries safety in it. You may find, as it deepens, that things you thought would ache forever begin, quietly, to ache less. Love that's real often works this way, healing not through effort, but simply through the steadiness of its presence. There's a playfulness woven through this connection that I don't want you to overlook, because love built to last almost always has laughter running through it. What approaches you isn't solemn or heavy, it carries lightness, the kind of easy humor that makes an ordinary afternoon suddenly sparkle. You may find yourself laughing more freely than you have in a long while, discovering that this person has a knack for tickling your sense of the absurd, for turning the mundane into something funny and shared. That laughter is not a trivial thing. It's the quiet mortar that holds a bond together through every season, the daily glue that turns a spark of attraction into the deeper comfort of companionship. Here's a marker of genuine compatibility to watch for, one that's easy to miss because it's made of nothing at all: the comfort of shared silence. Anyone can fill the air with words, but only certain people can sit beside you in quiet and have it feel like closeness rather than something to escape. What I sense drawing near carries that rare and precious quality, the ability to simply be near you without needing to prove the connection every passing second. If, in the coming days, you find a silence with someone that feels like rest instead of tension, mark it well. That easy quiet is among the truest signs that two people were meant to occupy the same space. Let me name the freshness of the chapter that's beginning, because there's genuine newness here, and newness deserves to be celebrated. Whatever came before, whatever disappointments accumulated, this is a clean page. You're not condemned to repeat your history. The approaching connection isn't a rerun of an old pattern with a new face. It's a genuine departure, a different kind of story with different rules. And that means the mistakes of before don't have to be repeated. The pain of before doesn't have to be reenacted. You get to begin again, wiser, but not scarred into repetition, carrying your lessons without carrying your wounds. There's a moment of mutual recognition coming that I want to prepare you to savor. At some point in these 2 days, or in the flow they set into motion, there may be an instant where you both realize simultaneously that something significant is happening between you. That shared recognition, the knowing that the other person knows, is one of the sweetest experiences a connection offers. It's the moment two separate certainties become a single shared one. Be present for it if you can. These moments pass quickly, and they're worth catching in full awareness rather than only understanding in retrospect. I want to offer you a way to hold all of this without gripping it too tightly, because there's an art to receiving good news about the future. Hold it the way you'd hold a small bird, with enough care that it feels safe, but loosely enough that it can breathe and move. Don't clamp down on the outcome. Don't try to force the timing to be exact or the details to match some picture in your head. Let it come the way it comes. The current knows its own course better than your anxiety does. And your job is simply to stay open, stay soft, stay available to the good that's making its way toward you. Here's a piece of the guidance that Sarah Angel Tarot would leave you with above all others. Trust the pull. If in these 2 days you feel drawn to reach out, to say yes, to lean toward a person or an opening, don't override that pull with second guessing. Intuition tends to move faster than reason, and in matters of connection, it often knows the way before the mind catches up. The impulse to move toward what's moving toward you is not to be suspected. It's to be followed. Your instinct is part of the alignment, not a threat to it. Let me describe the deeper permanence that this connection is oriented toward, because you should know it isn't built for the short term. What I sense in the person approaching you is a wish for something lasting, something that can grow roots and hold weight over time. This isn't a momentary flare that burns bright and vanishes. It has the makings of something you could build on. And that means the tentative steps taken in these 2 days are the opening of a longer road, not a brief detour. You're not being offered a spark that dies. You're being offered a fire meant to warm you for a long season. There's a specific sweetness I want to name about being wanted after a period of feeling unseen. If you've spent time feeling overlooked, feeling like the one who cares more, feeling as though you were always reaching and rarely being reached toward the reversal that's coming, will taste especially sweet. There's a particular joy in finally being pursued after a long stretch of pursuing and feeling the direction of the wanting flow toward you for once. Let yourself enjoy it fully. You've earned the experience of being the one who is chosen, and it's arriving. I want to reassure the part of you that worries this is too good, that these things happen for other people, but somehow never quite for you. That belief, that quiet conviction that you're the exception to whom good things don't come, is one of the oldest lies the wounded heart tells itself. And it's simply not true. You are not exempt from love. You are not uniquely disqualified from being cherished. The good that comes to others can come to you, and in these 2 days, it begins to let the old lie loosen its hold. Your turn is not a fantasy. It's an approach in progress. Let me speak to how you'll know it's real when it comes, because discernment matters, and I want you equipped. Real connection tends to feel expansive rather than anxious. It opens you up rather than shrinking you down. It leaves you feeling more like yourself, not less. So use that as your test. If what arrives makes you feel more spacious, more free, more able to breathe, trust it. If it makes you feel safe rather than on edge, lean in. The body knows the difference between a threat and a home, and this, I sense, will register in your body as a homecoming. There's a larger repair happening beneath the specifics of this single connection, and it deserves a mention of its own. What arrives isn't only about one person, it's about the quiet restoration of your faith in the whole possibility of love. Somewhere along the way, you may have concluded, without ever quite saying it aloud, that the good ones were already taken, that your window had closed, that this kind of tenderness happens for other people and somehow skips over you. This connection reopens that question at the level of lived experience rather than mere wishful thinking. It reminds you that love remains available to you, still real, still capable of catching you off guard with its sweetness. And once that faith comes back, it tends to stay, becoming a steadying warmth you carry into every other corner of your life. There's a gentleness I want to leave with you about the timing itself, because you might be tempted to watch the clock too closely. The 2 days are a doorway, not a deadline. If the fullness of what's approaching takes slightly longer to blossom, don't read that as failure. Some seeds sprout the moment the conditions are right, and others take a breath longer, and both are perfectly natural. What matters is that the conditions have shifted, the current has turned, the approach is underway. Trust the direction even more than the exact moment of arrival. The direction is unmistakable, and the direction is toward you. As we come to the close of our time together, let me gather the whole of it into a single warm thread you can carry forward. Something real has been moving toward you, and the movement has reached its final stretch. A person's hesitation is dissolving. Your own guardedness is softening. Circumstances have been aligning, and the fog that confused you is lifting into clarity. All of it is converging on the same tender point, which is you and the connection you've been quietly hoping for. Stay open. Stay gentle with yourself. Watch the ordinary moments for the extraordinary hiding inside them. And so I'll leave you with this. Softly, the way you'd set something precious into someone's open palm. What's approaching you was worth every stretch of waiting, every hard lesson, every moment you kept a small hope alive against the odds. Receive it when it comes. Let yourself be reached. You have spent enough of your life being the one who hopes from a distance. And now the distance is closing, and something warm and real is nearly close enough to touch. Get ready, not by bracing, but by softening. Get ready by believing, just a little, that this time the good thing really is coming toward you, because it is, and it's nearly here.